Reggie Collier wasn't built for the background of football history. He was built to lead. At Southern Miss in the late 1970s and early 1980s, Collier quickly became one of the most electrifying quarterbacks in the country. He could extend plays with his legs, throw with accuracy, and manage an offense with poise far beyond his age. Southern Miss didn't just compete, they won because Collier understood the game at a higher level. He led his team to major upsets, including victories over storied programs that had never underestimated Southern Miss until Collier stepped on the field. Coaches, scouts, and teammates agreed on one thing immediately. Collier was a quarterback, not an athlete being asked to pretend. His football intelligence commanded respect, and his leadership style drew attention across the nation. But as Collier prepared for professional football, he would discover a harsh reality. College excellence and professional respect did not guarantee the opportunity to play quarterback in the NFL. No matter how impressive his resume was, the league still viewed his talent in broader athletic terms, not as a pure passing leader. And suddenly, Collier was fighting for something he thought he already had earned. If Collier could lead Southern Miss to victories ordinary quarterbacks only dreamed about, why couldn't the NFL simply trust the man who had already proved he belonged? Collier arrived at Southern Miss during a time when the school desperately needed an identity at quarterback. From the moment he took over, his dual threat style breathed life into an offense that had been predictable for years. He had something modern football now celebrates: mobility used not as panic, but as strategy. Collier could avoid pressure, reset his eyes, and find receivers downfield long before dual threat quarterbacks became the foundation of the sport. Southern Miss wasn't simply competing with regional schools. They challenged traditional giants like Florida State and Alabama. Teams that had never game planned against a quarterback like Collier suddenly found themselves scrambling to contain him. His passing efficiency kept defenses honest, his rushing ability kept them terrified, and his demeanor inside the huddle gave the program a quarterback who could win anywhere. College scouts were stunned that Southern Miss, not a powerhouse recruiting machine, had landed a quarterback this polished. He didn't just make plays, he managed games, understood progressions, and elevated the players around him. By the time Collier reached his prime, Southern Miss no longer viewed itself as a spoiler. They believed they could beat the teams other programs feared. They shocked schools with more talent and bigger names because Collier made the impossible seem routine. Few quarterbacks in the country had more influence on their team's identity than Collier. By the early 1980s, Reggie Collier was no secret. Pro scouts understood what Southern Miss already knew. He wasn't just athletic, he was poised, intelligent, patient, and capable of reading defenses with maturity uncommon in college football. When he sat in film rooms during team visits, Collier recalled coverages, protections, and situational tendencies without hesitation. Coaches came away impressed not just by how he played, but how he understood the position. He didn't just run an offense, he processed it. Several NFL evaluators praised Collier privately. They admired his leadership, the way he handled pressure, and how he made everyone around him better. Yet publicly, pro football still viewed quarterbacks through a narrower lens. This was the early 1980s, before modern dual threat passers were welcomed, before improvisation was embraced, and before athletic quarterbacks were celebrated as decision makers. Collier could make every throw, yet many teams still asked only one question: where else can we use him? That was the professional wall Collier faced. He wasn't dismissed because he lacked talent, but because the league's traditional thinking made it hard to imagine a quarterback with his skill set running an NFL offense from day one. Some coaches suggested wide receiver. Others suggested defensive back. A few even wondered if he could be a running specialist. The irony was impossible to ignore. College football saw a quarterback, but the NFL saw an athlete. Then came the USFL, a league more willing to experiment, more open to dual threat quarterbacks, and more willing to believe that a passer could create opportunities with both arm and legs. Suddenly, Collier finally had a chance to be evaluated at quarterback on the merits of his actual position. But if the USFL trusted Collier enough to hand him an offense, why didn't the NFL, a league with better resources, better scouting, and more information, see the same quarterback Southern Miss and Collier's professional coaches already respected? The Birmingham Stallions didn't see Reggie Collier as a position conversion project. They saw a quarterback who could command a huddle, stretch defenses, manipulate the pocket, and create plays when protection broke down. In the USFL, Collier finally received something the NFL never fully offered him at the start of his professional journey: trust. As soon as he stepped onto the field, Collier validated that trust with the efficiency and calm he'd shown at Southern Miss. He handled complex protections, delivered accurate passes, and controlled the offense with the same composure that had once stunned powerhouse college programs. The Stallions coaches didn't care about labels, they cared about winning football games. Collier rewarded that belief by giving them a quarterback capable of doing both traditional and improvisational work. Crowds noticed the difference immediately. Collier wasn't simply athletic, he was cerebral. He moved defenders with pump fakes and eye control, reset progressions on the move, and executed timing concepts that required discipline, not just natural ability. Defenses had to account for everything. If they dropped too deep, Collier would step forward and take yards. If they blitzed, he punished them with quick reads. If they stayed balanced, he attacked the space they left behind. The USFL embraced ideas the NFL was still resisting at the time. Quarterbacks could be mobile and intelligent, athletic and strategic. Collier wasn't redefining football, he was simply allowed to play it without limitation. The respect he earned inside that league wasn't manufactured. It came from coaches and players who watched him dissect defenses in real time. But if the USFL proved Collier could thrive as a professional quarterback, why didn't his performance immediately force NFL teams to rethink everything they once doubted? As Collier continued to shine in the USFL, NFL evaluators quietly took notice. They weren't just impressed by his athleticism, they admired how he ran a professional offense with maturity, how he communicated protections at the line, and how he refused to panic when plays broke down. Collier's USFL film erased any doubt that he could handle the mental demands of quarterbacking at a high level. He wasn't guessing, he was diagnosing. When the USFL began to contract and the NFL saw an opportunity to acquire emerging talent, Collier suddenly became a name on multiple scouting boards. Teams respected his intelligence, his demeanor, and his ability to lead men. He didn't walk into the room like an athlete trying to learn quarterback. He walked in like a quarterback who already understood how to win. Coaches respected him immediately because he carried himself with quiet confidence. He had already proven that offensive leadership wasn't a college illusion, it was a professional attribute. The Dallas Cowboys gave Collier one of his first chances in the NFL, and he immediately earned the respect of teammates and coaching staff. They admired how quickly he picked up terminology, how effortlessly he understood offensive installs, and how comfortable he was controlling the field. But even with professional credibility, Collier often found himself sitting behind quarterbacks who had been drafted earlier, more polished by long-standing NFL traditions, or who fit the prototype NFL evaluators had leaned on for decades. Nobody doubted Collier's football IQ inside the facility. Nobody questioned his leadership. And nobody dismissed his ability to extend a play, make a throw, or energize an offense. But even as he earned personal respect, structural habits in pro football still made it difficult for a quarterback like Collier to fully command an NFL huddle from day one. If Collier proved he could master the playbook, win respect from coaches, and manage an offense like any trusted veteran, what fundamentally kept the NFL from fully unlocking the quarterback he had already become? Inside NFL locker rooms, nobody questioned Reggie Collier's competitive spirit, work habits, or command presence. Veterans liked him because he was disciplined in meetings, unselfish in preparation, and never rattled by the moment. Coaches liked him because he could execute timing concepts, break down coverages, and fit into professional offensive structures without needing years of grooming. Collier wasn't treated like a wild card. He was treated like a dependable teammate who understood responsibility and accountability. Yet the NFL of the early 1980s was a league defined by comfort zones. Teams trusted long-established quarterback prototypes, and many front offices leaned on decades of scouting assumptions that did not favor improvisational passers. To them, the safest path was familiar: tall pocket passers, predictable mechanics, and playbooks built around statues. Collier's dual threat style wasn't misunderstood, it was ahead of its time. Because NFL depth charts were rigid, Quarterbacks with non-traditional skill sets often entered rosters as insurance, not as primary investment. This meant Collier would frequently find himself learning offensive systems while also being evaluated for special packages, receiver roles, or even defensive assignments. These weren't demotions, they were attempts to make sure a talented football player didn't sit idle. Coaches respected Collier too much to release him. They valued him too much to ignore him. But at the same time, they hesitated to redesign an entire offense structure around a quarterback who could extend plays, win outside of script, and test defensive rules the league wasn't yet comfortable embracing. Collier could do so many things well that his versatility became both opportunity and obstacle. He was never denied a roster spot because he lacked skill. He earned his place by playing the sport the right way. But the NFL's imagination, not Collier's ability, determined how far he would go. If Collier could fit into any locker room, earn professional trust, and elevate every situation he stepped into, why wasn't the league ready to reshape its offensive thinking around a quarterback built for the future instead of the past? Reggie Collier's NFL story did not end with him being forgotten or dismissed. Instead, he became the kind of professional every franchise quietly admired. A talented leader who handled opportunity, limitation, and transition with dignity. He stood in quarterback rooms beside veterans and earned their confidence. When coaches needed him to absorb installs quickly, he did it. When teams asked him to help with specialized packages, he adapted without complaint. And when roster decisions required depth at multiple positions, Collier embraced the responsibility, understanding that the more he could do, the longer he could extend his professional career. That was Collier's gift. He made the sport better wherever he stood. Players respected him because he never sulked or tried to force drama. He understood that the NFL had structural tendencies he couldn't control, but he could always control his professionalism, preparation, and presence. And that respect mattered. Long after snaps were counted, long after teams shifted directions, long after careers evolved into new phases. Football later evolved into a world where dual threat quarterbacks didn't merely survive, they won MVP awards, rewrote record books, and defined modern innovation. The league finally embraced layered mobility, second play structure, and pocket flexibility as design, not desperation. That evolution made Collier's resume shine even more, not because he wished for a different era, but because his game was a preview of what professional football would eventually celebrate. Reggie Collier's journey wasn't a cautionary tale, it was a bridge between generations. He demonstrated that intelligence and improvisation could coexist, that quarterbacks could extend plays while still controlling the offense, and that respect inside a building often runs deeper than national headlines. If Collier helped prove that a quarterback could influence a professional game with both discipline and improvisation, how many careers in the early 1980s quietly confirmed an evolution that the NFL didn't fully understand until decades later? Reggie Collier's story is not about disappointment. It's about potential realized in places where opportunity aligned with trust. He entered college as a quarterback overlooked by the biggest recruiting giants, and he left as a leader who elevated a program and forced the football world to take notice. His professional path showed that respect doesn't always come from statistics or headlines, but from the men who shared the huddle, watched the film, and understood how complete his football mind truly was. Today, when modern football celebrates quarterbacks who can throw on the move, break down defenses outside of structure, and play with competitive creativity, it becomes impossible to ignore how much earlier players like Collier were ready to lead in ways the league wasn't yet prepared to unleash. He didn't just play the game, he previewed its future. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, subscribe, and share this episode with another football fan who appreciates history told with respect. And don't forget to visit the comment and click the link for the Old School Sundays jersey store, where legends from every era live on in the gear that we wear and remember. See you next time. Thanks for watching.